So Putin is correct. He can say that he's not influencing anything because he's just putting out his stance. But until we get a firm basis on fact and fiction in our own country, get some agreement about the facts, whether it be do I support the intelligence community or a story I read on my Twitter feed, we're going to have a big problem. I can tell you right now today, gray outlets that are Soviet-pushing accounts tweet at President Trump during high volumes when they know he's online, and they push conspiracy theories. So if he is to click on one of those or cite one of those, it just proves Putin correct, that we can use this as a lever against the Americans.
So this started in 2008-9 time period, as you've cited before with your previous timeline. Even before this rose up, even when there were 16 Republican candidates on the stage, this was a long time coming, and it seemed to be very well organized this time. Part of my question is, I get that completely. Why this time? They look to be more prepared. Probing, evaluating states, trying to get into voter records, trying to be more active in the process.
They have plausible deniability. If you wanted to run this during the Cold War, you would have had to put agents inside the United States. They would have been stalked by counterintelligence professionals. They would have been run down. You couldn't have gained an audience on a communist newspaper, for example. Today, you can create the content, gain the audience, build the bots, pick out the election and even the voters that are valued the most in swing states, and actually insert the right content in a deliberate period. They pre-planned it. They were based a year and a half out. They're doing it today on the European elections. And here's the other thing that needs to come up. They try all messages. You know, we've been very focused on, you know, our presidential election. The Republicans, you know, tend to come up, but the Democrats, they were there too. They were with Bernie Sanders supporters trying to influence them in different directions. So they play all sides. Much like I learned in infantry school about how they use artillery. They fire artillery everywhere, and once they get a break in the wall, that's where they swarm in and they focus. And they do that very well today. You'll see them in Europe supporting people on the left or right, whichever will dismantle the democratic function that they're after. So I think the important point moving forward is we have to educate our public and even our institutions. And the mainstream media is right to be taking some on the chin right now. They've fallen for a lot of these fake news stories. They've amplified it, and they've not gone back and done good fact-checking. The media needs to improve. Our U.S. government institutions need to improve, and we got to help Americans understand what the facts are, because if we don't, we are lost. We will become two separate, maybe three separate worlds in the United States, just because of this little bitty pinprick that was put in by a foreign country.
Which is their goal on that, Mr. Chairman?
Senator, would you like me to comment on some of the things we can do? Yeah, so there are 7 or 8 things we could do immediately that are not very complicated.
And my desk is not going to save me this time, right?
No, and I'll tell you right now, I'm going to walk out of here today. I'm going to be cyber attacked. I'm going to be discredited by trolls. You know, my biggest fear isn't being on Putin's hit list or psychological warfare targeting. I've been doing that for 2 years. My biggest concern right now is I don't know what the American stance is on Russia and who's going to take care of me. I mean, after years in the Army and the FBI, working in the intel communities today, I'm going to walk out of here and ain't nobody going to be covering my back. I'm going to be on my own. And so that's very disconcerting. And I think that speaks to what we need to do. One, in terms of falsehoods, we need to do 2 things. We need a State Department and a DHS website that immediately refute when falsehoods are put out. These seem silly when they come out. Incirlik, terrorist attack, for example. But the quicker they're refuted, the faster they die in social media. We caught the Incirlik attack because it was refuted quickly. When the Russians fake it, it gets exposed. If it goes on too long, it gets into mainstream media and it runs out of control. The other part is the FBI. They're doing a great job in terms of investigating hacking, but the hacking powers influence. Whenever there's a hack, we should immediately go in and look at what was stolen and figure out what is the anticipated smear campaign discrediting, how is this going to be weaponized and influenced. The next one I think is super important, which is educating U.S. businesses. Treasury and Commerce right now need to be doing awareness campaigns. Their companies suffer smear campaigns from foreign countries right now, which change their stock prices. Their employees are in social media and are being picked off through social engineering and hacked at. The other part really is in the private sector and the public sector that we need to look at. Mainstream media companies, we need to be working with them. What if they boycotted WikiLeaks collectively? What if they all didn't race to publish too quickly? If those damaging, stolen information that is misconstrued oftentimes doesn't get into the mainstream media, If all of them block it out, Russia's influence dies on the vine. And the last thing I think is the social media companies. Whether we like it or not, social media has become the news provider for almost all Americans. Our preferences shape what we see, and our friends share stuff with us, and it reinforces our views. And so I think that for them, they're worried about these state-sponsored groups in their system.